So, Oliver, I'm here to talk about your amazing career growth trajectory of how you increase your income by over 300% in a matter of years, and that's amazing.
Yes.
So, I'd love for you to tell the viewers who you are and a little bit about your background.
My name is Ola Ogunsanya. I am an HR professional. I guess now I can say I'm an HR leader.
Woohoo!
I have been doing human resources for close to 16 years now, and I started out all the way from a receptionist coordinator, and now I'm in a role leading regional HR for the Americas.
So you went from being a receptionist to being a regional HR leader, and that's amazing over the span of your career. Because when you think about it from an income perspective, you started making low 5 figures, right?
Yeah.
As a receptionist, and now you're a high 6-figure earner, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to talk us through what that transition looked like from receptionist to where you are now. Like, what roles did you have? And then we'll get into how you were able to grow your income with every new position that you took on. We had the conversation like years ago,
Yeah.
where you were talking about how in your career path you knew you wouldn't make more than this amount,
Yep.
and you just proved yourself wrong, and you
Yeah.
proved what everybody else told you wrong.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so go.
Yes. So when I got the receptionist role, it was kind of like something I wanted to do to get into the company. I knew I've always liked to do something with human resources. They seem to be having a lot of fun in their job. They're the ones who plan the parties.
You get a raise.
You
get a bonus.
You get a bonus, yes. They planned all the events, and it just seemed like a super fun job, and they knew everybody's business, and I was interested in that. Going into it for all the wrong reasons. So I made the decision to raise my hand so that I could lead onboarding for newly hired employees, because at the time we didn't have a program in place. And as a new hire, I remembered not knowing anything about anywhere, not even where the bathroom was. And so I put together this program, welcome to our company, and told people about where to go, aligned leaders to come and talk to the new employees. And it was just a pet project at the time. So after doing it for like 3 months, I realized that, I may be onto something. So I reached out to our managing director at the time and told him, for a little pay bump, I really could be the HR liaison for this office. And I remember him looking at me like, okay.
But you're a receptionist.
Yeah, he was just like, okay, but there's no pay, but we can change your title to HR liaison if that's what you want to call yourself. and little by little, I would take on projects. And so I did that job for like 3 years before then moving into an HR coordinator role out in Pennsylvania. And then immediately got laid off because there was no need for the position. And after that break, I took a break because I wanted to really be intentional. I knew I wanted to do HR. I didn't know too much about how to talk to people. So while applying to jobs, I also took a part-time job at Nordstrom, special occasion, where
I remember that.
Yeah, I was selling clothes to people, and I became so comfortable talking to all these executives coming in to shop for expensive clothes and dressing them up. And that's why I got a little bit of confidence in negotiating. And one thing led to another. One of the days I was fitting a lady and bringing clothes in, and apparently she works in HR, and she knew of an HR opportunity out in Devon, Pennsylvania, and put me in as a referral. And when I went into the interview, the lady said, well, you don't really have a lot of experience, but I'm willing to take a chance on you. This is a contract position, and we'll let you know how it goes. Well, I took the job in January. As of April, they were selling the company. So again, I was about to lose my job.
But the highlight here is that you made it a point to start networking.
Yes.
In a position that had nothing to do with really anything. You were selling clothes.
Yes.
But like when someone is being fitted or you're getting outfits for someone in the dressing room, like when I've never had that conversation in a store where someone's like, oh, let me tell you about myself and what I do. It just never happens. And you made that extra effort to tell the lady that you are getting close for,
Yep.
hey, this is my, you had to have told her what you were interested in,
Yep.
like what kind of job you're trying to get. And I think that's amazing because people always assume that opportunities from networking will just happen because you know somebody.
Yep.
But sometimes they happen because you don't know somebody, but you tell them.
Exactly. And you listen to them.
Exactly.
Tell their story. So she was shopping for a dress for some gala. I said, oh, that sounds fancy. What do you do? And she told me about her HR experience. And I said, oh, wow, I would love to be a CHRO someday. And she said, oh, interesting. So what is your background in? And we just started talking, just regular, oh, you know what? Spanx will look really good with that dress. Let me run down real quick and go grab it. And, going back and forth, grabbing Spanx, grabbing shoes, grabbing other things to make the outfit. She got really comfortable. She got to know me a little bit. And I love talking to people. And so from there, we exchanged numbers and I gave her my email address. She gave me her card. I emailed her my resume and it's just, yeah, I followed up with her.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you get this other position in PA,
Yes.
Pennsylvania, and then they sell the company and they lay you off again.
Yes. And so I found an opportunity in Bridgewater, New Jersey. They phone screened me. They really liked me, but the commute from Devon, Pennsylvania to Bridgewater was too far. So they really didn't want to hire anyone with long commute because that's why the position was open. So I told the lady, actually, I'm moving to New Brunswick, New Jersey. And she said, oh, really? Well, when you sign your lease and you have an address, call me back if it's within the next. I said, well, yeah, absolutely. So then I called my friends and, hey, do you know anyone who lives in Jersey? There's a job opportunity. And then they would hire me if I don't have an address. And my friend Nikki actually had someone who lived in New Brunswick and gave me an address. And I said, here's my new address. And then so they believed me, brought me in for an interview.
Coming into that job, right, did you start talking about, okay, well, this was what I was making before, I need to make this much more? Or was this happening later on?
This happened in this job.
Okay.
At this point in my career, I was just happy for all the opportunities that I was getting. Then I got in, I realized that it was a lot of work, which I was still grateful for. But over the years, as people were coming in, they were coming in at like 85,000, 90,000. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's the goal. Maybe one day I'll get there. Eventually, I worked up the courage to have the conversation. Like, I've been doing this job for 2 years now, and I have done a lot of work, and, would you be open to maybe bumping me up? And I remember my supervisor saying, so, do you think you're being paid unfairly? Kind of like, how dare you?
Wow.
And I immediately shut down like, oh, no, but it's just something for you to consider. I don't want to seem ungrateful. Still feeling like, thank you for giving me this job. But I guess I planted a seed because it came back with a 9% bump. After that encounter, I made it a point that I needed to double my income over the next 2 years. And that was a goal I wrote for myself, which meant at the time that I needed to leave that job.
So you had that negative experience with your boss where you tried to ask for a raise, but you did it kind of timidly.
Yeah.
And then they started asking you, well, why do you think you deserve more? And you left that job. So given that experience you had, right, how did you then turn around and build the confidence to ask for more? Because this is the beginning of where you really increased your income intentionally. This is that 300% increase over the next few years. And it wasn't because somebody was just handing you raises. It was because you were intentional intentional with asking every time you had the opportunity to ask. So how did you turn that around? Because a lot of people, they will have that one negative experience. Well, why do you think you deserve that? Or do you think you're underpaid?
Yeah.
And they will just shut down and not ask again.
Yeah.
Or the next time they'll have fears about asking and they might not even confidently ask for what they deserve, right? So how did you turn that around and become this, well, you know what, I'm going to get paid what I'm worth. I'm going to get paid more than you think I need to earn?
So, circle of influence really matters. I've been very lucky early on to have friends who kind of helped me check in with myself, you being one of them. I remember, Ola, you need to make more money. I remember that conversation. We were on the phone and we're talking about our financial goals, and I'm like, oh, I have all these debt I'm trying to pay. And you're like, oh, Ola, you need to make more money. That's exactly how you said it. And I remember one of my friends came to visit. I lived in South Brunswick in this apartment that I was rented for $800, and I felt like, oh, I'm so lucky to find this. I just had this gratitude mentality in a way that wasn't very effective.
Which is common with a lot of women, right?
Yeah, like just be grateful for what you have, like being content. So all of these people in my life just telling me, we know that you want more for yourself, but where you are right now is not going to get you there. It kind of just encouraged me and motivated me to want more. But I knew that just going into those conversations or even in job opportunities and saying this is how much I want was not enough. So I started doing research. I knew that I wanted to be an HR leader. I knew that I wanted to make 6 figures before I'm 30. And I knew that I was a little late for that goal, but I didn't know how to get there. So when I would apply for a job and they asked, what's your salary requirement? I learned a tip where you don't give them a number. In the past, I would say, well, I'm currently making this amount, and I'll be happy to make a lateral move, or I would be happy to negotiate, but this is where I currently am. So I stopped sharing that detail. And then I would say, well, based on what I'm seeing on Glassdoor, there's a range between, give them like the range that is the average. So let's say, for instance, this job is paying $70,000, then tack on another $15,000 and maybe start your range from $80,000 to $95,000. That would really be my sweet spot. And say it, drop it, put it out there, and let them see what they come back with. So the first time I did this, they asked me what's my salary requirement, and I just gave them a number, like thinking, at the time it was like $15,000 more than I was making. I was like, they're gonna find me out. And they came back and said, well, this position doesn't pay that much, so we are going to bump you to a senior benefits analyst so that we can meet you at that pay rate. I'm like, oh, even a higher title? Yes, let's do it. And I got the job. I really bust my butt, worked really hard in that position, learned all there was to learn. And then a few months later, I wasn't liking how the leadership was talking to employees. So I was back on the job market looking for the next best thing. And I gave myself 2 weeks and I applied for a position. They brought me in for an interview and they asked me, what's my salary requirement? Mind you, I just got a job like 6 months ago, $15,000 more. And I'm like, I'll be happy to make a move for another $20,000 more. And they came back with, okay, well, sure. That's the base salary. This position also offers a 15% bonus. And just like that, I was in the 6 figures. And I remember getting my offer letter, calling my mom, screaming, telling everybody, oh, this is how much I'm making now, which y'all shouldn't be doing that because everybody now knows how much you're making and they start hitting you up for money. So I've learned. And since then, negotiating, and that gave me, what I realized is the power of compounding, where you start from kind of helps you. I started getting bolder. So the next opportunity, I was like, oh, I have a bonus that's coming in and I would be happy to take this position in 2 weeks, or we could wait another 3 months so that I could get my retention bonus. This is how much I'm expecting, and negotiating and say, well, we'll be happy to meet you halfway with the sign-on bonus. We have another bonus paying out in 6 months anyway, which you'll be eligible for. So just like that, another move, and just having in mind that I am worthy of it. That's what changed. And then I started owning my talent. I started owning my my expertise and my professional business acumen, and knowing that I bring something to the table. Ola, can you make this trip? Do we have any flexibility on that? And start negotiating not only for my pay, but negotiating for a work-life balance, even though that doesn't really exist, but a work style, or that made sense for me. Sustainable work life, that made sense for me. And then just negotiating just how involved I want to be in a project, negotiating what kind of conferences I get to go to, and just realizing that I have the ability to ask for things. And when you ask, people will consider it, especially if you're of value to them.
So that is amazing, right? So now you're this high six-figure earner, and I'm hearing a number of things that you did to get you there. So number one was adjusting your mindset, right? It was building up the confidence. It was doing the research so that when you went to present how much you wanted to make, you weren't presenting on being paid low. You're presenting on what the industry was saying you should be paid for your skill set. Another thing you said was knowing your value and negotiating not just your pay, but everything in between. So your day-to-day tasks, your travel. And I think that's amazing. And I think it's something that as women, I've been guilty of not negotiating my pay, not negotiating projects, just, being happy to be there, not even taking my own vacation that I've earned because I didn't want my boss to feel like I wasn't putting in the effort because all the other guys who work on the project are putting in the effort, right? So I think those are all things that are really important for us as women to consider, not just be grateful to be there, to have the job. Because like you said, right, we think about it as, okay, this company, what can I do so they can hire me? But it should be the reverse. How can this company prove that they can bring me on? How can they, how can this company prove that they are worth my time, right? Like, you have to value yourself and what you bring to the table as well. And I think that's so critical for a lot of women, for every woman. So what advice do you have for someone who is in that space where they need to earn more money and they're struggling with negotiation? They need to build that confidence to sit in front of their boss, or even sometimes negotiate with your boss and your boss's boss, right? And it's like people who might be intimidating you either on the phone or in person. What advice would you give that woman who's in the early stages of, I'm so grateful to be here, right? To help her get to being that confident boss, and she's like, listen, this is what I'm worth. Tell me what you're gonna do.
So I read Trevor Noah's book. What was it? Born a Crime.
Amazing book.
Great book. My favorite part of that book was when he said we all poop the same way. No one is better than you. No one is more worthy of opportunities than you are. You are just all the same. For me, that is something that ever since I read that, it really resonated with me, especially with my public speaking. I would get so nervous getting on stage. And once I remember that, I'm like, oh, I got this. And sitting across from somebody else, it's just you telling your story, you asking for what you want. The worst that could happen is them saying no. That's the worst that could happen. They could just say, no, not right now. Kind of have like a come to Jesus with yourself, like, okay, I'm about to go in and ask for this. I'm very nervous about it, but what's the worst that could happen? We already told you, they could say no. No one is gonna really fire you because you asked for a raise, unless there's something else going on in that work environment, and then you probably shouldn't be working there, maybe you need an attorney. But if I had $1 for every time an employee came into HR and asked for more money, I probably could have paid up all my student loans on time. So, don't be scared to ask. Now, when you are kind of drumming up that confidence, I always say, majority of the time in business, as much as it's okay to bring your full self to work, people don't get caught up with the feelings. Come with your data. Kind of come with the quality data, be quantitative about it. This is what I'm seeing in the market. This is the market trend. This is how much people are getting paid. I've been in this position for this long. Here are my results over the last 6 months. When you say over the last year, it kind of seems like a long time, and people have like recency bias. So you're only as great as your last achievement. As much as people don't like to say it, but that's the truth.
Very true, though. Yeah.
So keep it short, like 3 months. Over the last 6 months, this is what I've done. And in the last 3 months, here are the value add that I've brought to the table. I just want to bring them. I know that we have performance review discussions coming up next year, but I would just like to put it on your radar that I would like a raise, even a market adjustment, however you want to put it, and put it out there and see what they say. Usually they will say, oh, okay, because a supervisor should not necessarily ask, so why do you think you need that? Because you've led with your receipts. You shouldn't just go in and say, I would like a raise. And then if they're asking you, why should you? If you've led with the answers, they will use, oh, well, give me some time to think about this and we'll get back to you. And they also have a number in your head, like how much are you really asking for? And have that number, because sometimes they'll ask you, so how much are you looking to get paid, so that they can have that discussion with whoever's making the decision. Now, I would like you all to note that HR, or the compensation team, is in charge of administering the compensation practices for an organization. However, the decision rights actually lay with the department heads. So in some cases, even if HR says this is the range, this is what we can do, if you get on the radar of your department head or you find favor with the manager who's willing to go to bat for you, there's always something that can be done. So don't get discouraged if they say, oh, this is the most this position is offering. And just be open to compromising and negotiating with them. So maybe they can't increase your pay, but maybe they can give you a spot bonus. That's still one for the goal, but at least you have the practice of asking for what you want.
Those are some great tips, and I especially love the fact where you say come with your receipts and come with your recent accomplishments, right? Because you can, before they even get to say, well, who do you think you are, and why are you asking for a raise, you can tell them, you know what, guess what, I've done all these amazing things, here's what I want, and it's hard for them to counter that. Right there. They may walk away and go have a conversation and say, okay, we can't afford that, we can do this in 6 months. But even if they say no, there's opportunity to come back in 6 months, right? Or to find a better paying job, or like you now know, based on, like you said, have a goal before you walk in, you now know what action steps to take. Okay, they said no, I'm going to come back in 6 months, or I'm going to start looking for a new job. So these are some really amazing tips, and it's been a journey, obviously, but you're in this space where I'm so proud of you, right?
Thank you.
You went from earning low 5 figures to now being a high 6-figure earner, and that is a big deal, especially since, when you looked at your career path as a receptionist, that's not something that you could ever have imagined for yourself until you actually started taking the action and being intentional about increasing your income, and not just that, but getting into a career space that you wanted to be in and that you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing your amazingness with the Clever Girl Finance audience, Ola.
Thank you.